Emily Miller sat in the soft glow of her living room, the quiet hum of the Sunday afternoon settling around her like a warm blanket. She cradled her tea mug, scrolling through photos of her children on her phone, smiling at the innocent moments frozen in time, yet feeling the tug of fatigue that always lingered after a long week. Life in Cedarwood had always seemed stable, predictable, safe, a rhythm she had learned to rely on, and she liked it that way. Her husband David was at work, and the children were napping, leaving her in this rare silence, a brief pause to breathe. That peace, however, was shattered by a knock at the door, abrupt and urgent, carrying a tension that made her stomach twist unexpectedly. It wasn't the soft, friendly tap of a neighbor dropping by. It was sharper, insistent, demanding attention. And Emily's heart skipped a beat as she hesitated. She wasn't expecting anyone, not at this hour, not in this quiet moment she had carved out for herself. With cautious steps, she approached the door, her mind racing through possibilities, but the moment she opened it, all assumptions shattered. There stood Michael, her high school love, someone she hadn't seen in years but had never quite forgotten. He looked older, of course, more worn by life, yet there was a familiarity in his eyes, a pull that she hadn't felt in a long time. He seemed tense, almost afraid, yet there was an urgency that could not be ignored. "Emily, I need to talk," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight that made Emily's pulse quicken. Memories came flooding back, the laughter, the late-night talks, the small moments of tenderness that had once seemed like the center of her world. But those memories belonged to another life, one she thought she had closed the door on. And yet, here he was, a ghost from the past standing on her porch, carrying a message that promised to disrupt the life she had built. "It's about everything we thought we knew. About your husband," Michael continued, his words hanging in the air, heavy and shocking. Emily's mind spun. What could he possibly mean? Her hand tightened on the doorframe, her chest tightening with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and an unshakable sense of dread. The quiet living room, the safe, familiar walls, suddenly felt fragile, as if the ground beneath her feet had shifted without warning. Questions tumbled through her head faster than she could catch them. Had David been hiding something? Had she been blind to signs she had ignored for comfort's sake? Her thoughts collided with memories of his recent absences, his distracted demeanor, the subtle ways he seemed distant, all the tiny cracks she had chosen to overlook. Michael's gaze never wavered, filled with a sincerity that both terrified and drew her in, and Emily felt a confusing rush of emotions: anger, fear, nostalgia, and an almost forbidden longing that she could not easily name. She wanted to slam the door, to retreat into the safety of her home and pretend this never happened, but curiosity anchored her feet in place. The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, the space between the doorframe charged with unspoken truths and dangerous possibilities. Memories of laughter, youthful affection, and innocent promises collided with the present tension, making it impossible for her to ignore the moment. Her hands trembled slightly, and she realized that something had changed irrevocably. A door in her life had opened that could not be closed again. Michael's presence was more than unexpected. It was a catalyst, a jolt that demanded attention, that threatened the comfort and predictability she had so carefully maintained. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, the quiet rhythm of her Sunday afternoon obliterated by a single urgent knock, and she realized that nothing would ever feel the same. The calm she had been savoring was gone, replaced by anticipation, fear, and a strange, unwelcome excitement. She knew that what Michael had to say could unravel everything she thought she knew about her family, about her marriage, and perhaps even about herself. Standing there, frozen in a mixture of dread and curiosity, Emily understood that this moment was the beginning of a journey she could not control, one that would challenge her beliefs, her emotions, and the very foundation of her life. Her children's laughter and David's steady presence had always been her anchor, but now those anchors seemed distant, uncertain, and fragile. Michael's eyes searched hers for a reaction, and in that gaze, she found a mixture of hope and fear that mirrored her own, a reflection of emotions she had long suppressed. The world outside felt irrelevant, the familiar streets of Cedarwood fading into the background as reality narrowed to the doorway. The man standing there, and the secret he carried. Emily's mind raced with 1,000 questions, but before she could speak, Michael added, "Emily, you need to hear this from me first, before anything else." The urgency in his tone made it impossible to turn away. She felt a shiver of anticipation, an electric tension that mingled with dread, and realized that life as she knew it had shifted in a single instant. One knock had changed everything. One knock had opened a door she didn't know existed. A door leading to truths, heartbreak, and perhaps a chance at rediscovering parts of herself she thought she had lost forever. And as she stepped back slightly, letting Michael in, her heart raced with the weight of the unknown, and she knew that this ordinary Sunday would mark the start of a story she could never have imagined, a story of love, betrayal, and the fragile, aching beauty of human emotion. Emily couldn't sleep that night, her mind spinning with Michael's words, each one a weight pressing down on her chest, making it impossible to find comfort even in the familiar warmth of her bedroom. The quiet of the house, usually soothing, now felt heavy, almost suffocating, as shadows from the moonlight stretched across the walls and whispered doubts into her mind. She replayed Michael's expression over and over, serious, tense, and almost pleading, as if he were carrying a truth too heavy for one person alone, a truth that could topple her carefully built life. Images of David flashed in her mind, his gentle smile, his distracted glances, the way he had seemed preoccupied in recent weeks. And Emily felt a creeping fear that the life she had trusted might be built on illusions. By morning, the anxiety gnawed at her so fiercely that she felt compelled to search for answers, to see for herself whether the cracks Michael hinted at were real. While the children were at school and David was at work, she wandered into the attic, a place she had avoided for months, where old boxes, forgotten mementos, and relics of their shared past lay covered in dust and shadows. Emily's hands trembled as she sifted through envelopes, photographs, and letters, each item revealing glimpses of David's hidden movements, receipts for dinners she hadn't known about, messages on his phone she had never seen, small notes that suggested someone else had been on his mind. The reality of these discoveries hit her like cold water, sharp and shocking, and yet a part of her had expected this, had feared it, and now faced the undeniable proof. Emily's emotions surged uncontrollably. Confusion, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal collided with her natural tendency to love, to forgive, and to hope. She couldn't believe that David, the man she had trusted with her heart and her children, could have secrets layered beneath his calm exterior, and yet there it was in black and white, evidence she could not ignore. When David returned home that evening, she tried to maintain composure, swallowing the lump in her throat, feeling her chest tighten with the fear of confrontation, knowing that the conversation she was about to have could change everything. "David, can we talk about us?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling despite her attempt at calm. David's reaction, a hesitant pause, a fleeting shadow crossing his face, an almost imperceptible frown, sent a shiver through her, confirming her worst fears. He avoided her gaze, and Emily felt a rush of heat to her cheeks, shame mixed with sorrow, as the home that had always been her sanctuary suddenly felt alien, untrustworthy, and fragile. The tension between them was palpable, thickening the air, and every unspoken word seemed louder than any spoken sentence, making her wonder how long their shared life had been built on partial truths. Emily's mind raced as she tried to piece together the moments that had seemed ordinary, weekend getaways, sudden work trips, subtle distractions, and she realized that she had perhaps been too willing to see only what she wanted, too willing to believe in the safety of a perfect life. She remembered the nights when David returned home late, the slight changes in his demeanor, the way he sometimes hesitated to speak when she asked about his day, and she felt a sting of regret at not trusting her instincts earlier. Michael's warning echoed in her mind, reminding her that some truths must be confronted before they grow too powerful to control. Emily understood now that denial had kept her safe, but it had also left her blind, vulnerable to the possibility of heartbreak that was now unfolding with undeniable clarity. She sat alone at the kitchen table after the confrontation, staring at her untouched cup of tea, feeling the weight of the choices ahead, knowing that the foundation of her life was no longer certain, and realizing that this moment of revelation was both terrifying and strangely liberating. The very walls of her home seemed to hold their breath, waiting for her next move, and Emily sensed that nothing would ever feel the same, that the safety she had relied on was gone, replaced by a fragile, uncertain truth that demanded courage, clarity, and perhaps forgiveness she wasn't sure she could give. Questions tore through her mind. Had she been blind to David's actions because she wanted to believe in their love, or had he been careful enough to hide everything perfectly? The thought made her chest ache, the familiar warmth of her living room now feeling cold, distant, almost unreal. Emily knew she needed answers, not just from David, but from herself, to understand what she could forgive, what she could endure, and what she deserved in the life she was building for her children. The hours stretched, unrelenting as she wrestled with the possibility of loss, the fear of betrayal, and the undeniable pull of her own heart toward a man from her past who had reminded her that life could be complicated, messy, and full of unexpected chances for love and heartbreak alike. By the time night fell again, Emily's emotions had become a storm, a turbulent mix of sorrow and longing, anger and nostalgia, as she realized that the life she had believed so solid was now a landscape of fragile truths and uncertain possibilities. Michael's face and words lingered in her mind, reminding her that the world outside her home was complex, that love and betrayal often intertwined, and that sometimes the bravest act was to face the truth, no matter how painful, and choose what was right for her and her family. Emily understood that confrontation was just the beginning, that her journey through heartbreak and healing would require strength, patience, and clarity she wasn't sure she possessed yet. She imagined the conversations ahead, the confessions, the apologies, the possible tears and forgiveness, and she felt a strange mixture of fear and relief, knowing that at least the truth was now visible, no longer hidden behind quiet smiles and daily routines. And as she sat in the quiet of her home, the moonlight spilling through the window, she realized that her life had shifted irrevocably, that the familiar rhythms of cedarwood could never feel the same, and that her heart, though heavy, was being called to awaken, to confront love, betrayal, and the delicate process of reclaiming herself amidst the uncertainty of the world she had trusted for so long. The attic had revealed more than secrets. It had revealed a new path, a moment to make choices, to seek honesty, to decide whether to hold on, let go, or rebuild. And Emily knew deep down that this was only the beginning of a story that would shape her heart, her family, and the fragile, beautiful life she had fought so hard to create. Emily's life felt like it was hanging in the balance, every heartbeat heavy with uncertainty as days passed into restless nights filled with thoughts she couldn't escape. The memory of Michael's arrival at her door, his urgent words, and the hidden truths he had revealed to her replayed in her mind endlessly, creating a whirlwind of emotions that left her both terrified and strangely alive. She found herself thinking about him constantly, remembering the comfort of his presence, the honesty in his eyes, and the way he seemed to understand her in a way no one else could. At the same time, she felt the ache of betrayal when she looked at David, the man she had promised her life to, whose recent distance and hidden actions had shaken the very foundation of her trust. Emily was caught in a storm of longing, heartbreak, and confusion. Her heart pulled in two directions, and she didn't know which way to turn. The days were a blur as she tried to keep her family life normal, laughing with her children, helping them with schoolwork, and keeping the house in order. While inside, her mind and heart were anything but calm. She began meeting Michael in secret, unable to resist the need for answers, for clarity, for the raw honesty he brought into her life, and each encounter left her more conflicted, more aware of feelings she thought were long gone. Michael spoke with a tenderness and sincerity that reminded her of younger days, of the person she had once been, full of hope and love that felt untainted by the burdens of adult life. Every conversation brought pieces of the truth, revealing that David had been maintaining a connection with someone from his past, someone whose presence in their lives had gone unnoticed until Michael uncovered it. Emily listened, a knot of pain tightening in her chest, as the reality of David's actions became undeniable. And yet, amidst the hurt, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected. The possibility of reclaiming a part of herself that had been hidden under years of routine, comfort, and loyalty. She thought about her children, the life she had built with David, the home filled with laughter and memories, and she realized the weight of the choices ahead, choices that could redefine her future, her sense of self, and the meaning of love in her life. Emily knew she couldn't continue in ignorance, but facing the truth was harder than she had imagined. Each revelation cut deeper. Each new piece of knowledge made her question everything she had once taken for granted. And yet, the presence of Michael reminded her that love could be honest, simple, and healing, even in the midst of pain, even when the world seemed to crumble around her. She felt a deep longing to escape, to choose a path that would allow her heart to breathe freely, yet guilt and responsibility anchored her to the life she had built with David. Her mind raced with questions. Could she forgive him? Could she trust him again? Could she let go of the love she had for Michael, the man who had reminded her of her own strength and desire for honesty? Nights were the hardest, the quiet hours amplifying her thoughts, the silence allowing every fear, hope, and memory to surface, making sleep a distant memory she could no longer claim. She remembered moments with David, their first house, the laughter of their children, the dinners they had shared, and the promises they had made, and she realized that love wasn't simple, that it required courage, forgiveness, and a willingness to face the messiness of human hearts. Michael's visits became a lifeline, a way to process the storm of emotions inside her, and Emily found herself torn between the safety of the familiar and the passion of what might be, between duty and desire, between forgiveness and self-preservation. Every glance at David now carried suspicion. Every interaction was weighed against the truths she had discovered, and every thought of Michael carried a bittersweet ache, a reminder of what might have been and what could still be. She began to understand that life doesn't offer easy choices, that love isn't always clean or fair, and that sometimes the bravest act is to confront your own heart, acknowledge your pain, and decide what you truly need to move forward. Emily wrestled with the concept of forgiveness, realizing it wasn't about excusing the hurt, but about reclaiming her own peace, about making space for love, honesty, and clarity to return to her life, whether with David, with Michael, or in the path she hadn't yet imagined. Her days were filled with quiet observation, reading into small gestures, noting the words left unsaid, and feeling the tension between what was visible and what was hidden, understanding that trust once broken takes time to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. She found herself reflecting on her own worth, her capacity for love, and the future she wanted for herself and her children, realizing that the answers weren't simple, that happiness might not come in the form she expected, and that every choice would carry consequences she could not ignore. Michael became more than a reminder of the past. He was a mirror, showing Emily the strength, vulnerability, and courage she had within her, while David represented the complexity of love, the possibility of redemption, and the challenges of forgiveness. As the days turned into weeks, Emily stood at the edge of a precipice, a crossroads where heart and mind clashed, where desire and duty wrestled, and where every step forward felt uncertain yet necessary. She understood that the story of her life was being rewritten in real time, that the past could not be changed, but the future was hers to shape, that the heart's journey is rarely straight, and that every emotion, pain, longing, hope, was valid and meaningful. Emily's soul felt heavy, yet alive. Her heart expanded with possibilities and fears alike, knowing that love could heal, betray, and transform, sometimes all at once. She knew she needed to make choices not just for herself, but for her children, for the family she had worked so hard to protect, and for the life she still dreamed of having, a life filled with honesty, warmth, and genuine connection. And as she reflected on her encounters with Michael and the revelations about David, Emily realized that the path forward would not be easy, that heartbreak and hope often coexist, and that she had the power to navigate her emotions, confront the truths, and decide where her heart truly belonged. In the quiet moments when no one else was watching, when the house settled into stillness, Emily felt the tension of her life, the collision of love and betrayal, and the pull of new possibilities, knowing that every decision she made from this point forward would shape the rest of her life, that every step was part of a journey toward understanding herself, her relationships, and the fragile, enduring beauty of love, trust, and emotional truth. And so, with Michael's honesty echoing in her mind and David's actions weighing on her heart, Emily faced the most difficult challenge of all, choosing how to move forward, how to balance love and betrayal, hope and fear, knowing that the coming days would demand courage she wasn't sure she had, yet realizing deep within that she could not remain frozen, that she had to act, to feel, and to decide, because life, love, and family waited for no one, and one choice could change everything. The days after Emily's confrontation with David and her secret meetings with Michael passed like a blur, each moment heavy with tension, emotion, and uncertainty. And one evening, as the sun dipped behind the cedarwood rooftops, a familiar knock echoed through the house, soft but urgent, and Emily's heart leapt with a mixture of fear, anticipation, and exhaustion, because she knew this knock could change everything again. When she opened the door, it was David, standing there with his eyes full of vulnerability, a weight in his posture that spoke of sleepless nights, regret, and a desire to make things right, and Emily felt an ache in her chest, torn between the hurt of betrayal and the love that had never truly left her heart, a love that had built her family, filled her home, and shaped her life in ways Michael never could, even as Michael lingered in her thoughts like a shadow of what might have been. David spoke first, his voice soft but steady, admitting mistakes he had hidden, confessing the ways he had failed, the moments he had allowed distance and secrecy to creep between them, and Emily felt tears prick her eyes, a mixture of sorrow, anger, and the faintest glimmer of hope, because she realized that human hearts were complicated, capable of error, forgiveness, and renewal, if only one was brave enough to try. He asked for her forgiveness, not demanding it, but offering it as a gift he knew he had to earn, promising to rebuild trust brick by brick, day by day, to prove through action rather than words that their love could survive the cracks that had formed. And Emily, holding back her own storm of emotion, knew that this was a crossroads, a moment where the future of her marriage, her family, and her own heart hung in the balance, delicate and fragile, yet filled with possibility. She thought of her children sleeping upstairs, unaware of the emotional turbulence below, and felt a protective surge, realizing that whatever path she chose, she needed to consider not just her heart but theirs, the stability, the love, and the memories they deserved. And in that instant, the weight of responsibility and the pull of desire collided violently. Yet Emily found herself stepping forward, feeling the tentative warmth of forgiveness bloom slowly, like the first fragile rays of dawn after a long night. Michael, who had been present in her mind as both confidant and reminder of a past love, became a bittersweet echo, someone who had helped her see herself, her strength, and her needs, yet whose presence now felt distant, reminding her that some people are meant to guide but not remain, and that love can take many forms, some fleeting, some enduring, all teaching lessons that shape the soul. Emily's heart raced as she allowed herself to feel both grief and relief, acknowledging the pain that had brought clarity and the hope that could now take root, and she realized that healing was not instant, that trust rebuilt would require effort, patience, and courage. Yet the first step had been taken, and the weight she had carried for weeks began to lift, replaced by a fragile sense of possibility, the understanding that love can endure if nurtured with honesty, communication, and shared commitment. In the days that followed, Emily and David worked quietly to rebuild, their conversations deepening, their gestures of care becoming deliberate, intentional, and filled with meaning, small acts of kindness, shared meals, laughter returning slowly, the children's smiles bridging gaps that words could not, and Emily felt a profound sense of gratitude for the resilience of the human heart and the power of love to heal when approached with sincerity. She remembered the ache she had felt in Michael's presence, the longing for a connection that had seemed impossible to ignore, and she realized that some chapters are meant to close, some paths are meant to diverge, yet the lessons, the emotions, and the memories remain as proof of growth, reflection, and the complexity of human relationships. Emily discovered that forgiveness was not about erasing the past, but about reclaiming her own peace, taking ownership of her life and choices, and allowing herself to move forward with clarity, love, and intention, understanding that the heart could carry both scars and hope simultaneously. Nights that had once been filled with doubt and sleepless worry slowly became quiet, reflective, and comforting as she and David rebuilt the trust that had fractured, learning to communicate without fear, to express feelings honestly, and to cherish the moments they often took for granted before. And in this process, Emily felt her own heart expand with compassion, empathy, and a renewed sense of connection, both to her husband and to the life they were creating together. She acknowledged the pain Michael's presence had stirred, but accepted it as a necessary catalyst, a mirror showing her what she valued most, what she desired, and what she could not compromise on: honesty, intimacy, and emotional availability. The home, once filled with the tension of secrets and unspoken truths, gradually returned to a rhythm of warmth, laughter, and gentle predictability. Yet Emily carried within her the awareness of how fragile trust can be, how precious love truly is, and how crucial it is to nurture relationships with care, patience, and understanding. She recognized that emotional healing is a journey, rarely linear, and that every day offered opportunities to choose love over fear, hope over despair, and openness over isolation, and she embraced this path with quiet determination, realizing that her choices now were shaping not just her present, but the legacy of love, respect, and resilience she would pass on to her children. Emily also understood that life can test hearts in unexpected ways, that the past sometimes returns to challenge the present, and that confronting pain directly, with courage and honesty, is often the first step toward real growth. And she took that lesson deeply to heart, letting it guide her interactions, decisions, and reflections on both love and life. In time, she and David created a renewed sense of intimacy, a partnership grounded in shared values, deepened understanding, and a commitment to transparency, learning to forgive without forgetting, to love without fear, and to trust while remaining mindful of human imperfection. The children noticed the subtle shift in energy at home, sensing safety, warmth, and attentiveness that had returned, and Emily felt a quiet joy, knowing that the family's foundation, though shaken, could now support a stronger, wiser, and more resilient bond, one built on experience, reflection, and intentional care. Michael remained a part of her past, a reminder of what could have been, yet his role in her story became clear. He was a guide, a catalyst, and nothing more, and Emily allowed herself to release any lingering attachment with gratitude rather than regret, understanding that love manifests in different forms at different times. As weeks turned into months, Emily's heart felt steadier, her trust cautiously restored, her home alive with laughter and gentle love, and she knew that the knock which had once shattered her peace had ultimately opened the door to growth, reflection, and the conscious choice to embrace life fully, love deeply, and forgive honestly. A choice that would continue to shape her family, her relationships, and her understanding of the beautiful complexity of human emotion for years to come. And as she looked around her home one quiet evening, listening to the soft breathing of her children upstairs, feeling David's hand brush hers with a simple, unspoken reassurance, Emily realized that life, love, and family are never perfect, that hearts will sometimes break and repair, and that the courage to face truth, the willingness to forgive, and the ability to embrace hope are the very things that make love endure, resilient, and profoundly meaningful. And in that moment, the Miller household, though marked by trials and revelations, felt alive, whole, and ready for the future, a testament to the quiet power of understanding, healing, and the enduring promise of love renewed.